quit taking financial advice that is meant for the common person when you are totally uncommon.
Hello, Profit First entrepreneurs and thought leaders. I'm so excited today because we have a special guest. We have Joey Mure and Russ Morgan joining us from their Wealth Without Wall Street. And today we're going to talk about the concept of infinite banking. Now Joey and Russ, they are entrepreneurs, first of all, just at the heart of the matter. And they love creating and building new businesses. And really what they do is they spend most of their time in Wealth Without Wall Street and they help entrepreneurs create content as well as connect entrepreneurs to ideas and frameworks that allow them to build financial freedom for themselves. So please welcome Joey and Russ to our platform. Hi, how are you guys doing today?
We're doing great. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, Suzanne, thank you for having us. This is such a pleasure to be on with you today.
Well, we're excited to have you. We're excited to learn about infinite banking and really be able to create wealth without having to work more extra hours, right?
Yes, we know as entrepreneurs, sometimes the burden that we carry is this never-ending desire to keep doing more and more and more, and a lot of times lose sight of why we started our business to start off with.
Definitely. So tell us, this is a new term for a lot of our viewers and listeners, this concept of infinite banking. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Well, I think it's great in the context of profit first and foremost, right? When we've been taught to start setting up these different accounts and putting money where it is to make sure that profit goes to us first, we have basically said, okay, we could put that money into just checking accounts, right? But checking accounts and cash is really a dead asset. It's not growing. It's going backwards when you can consider inflation. And from a tax standpoint, it's not very good either. So how could we improve that? And I think our conversation around infinite banking applies specifically to how to improve that.
Yeah. So, Suzanne, I came from a financial planning background. I was in the money management business for a long period of time. And a lot of the things I would recommend to my clients was putting money into accounts that they couldn't touch until they were 60, right? And when I started looking around at, how entrepreneurs use money, as we all know, one, we're great at making it, sometimes not so great at keeping it. And so at first I thought the best thing I could do for them is separate them, get them in a place where they're storing money off to the side and not thinking about it, and they're going to be so much better off down the road. But what ends up happening is that they only put a really small amount of money in there because they get nervous, right? They get nervous about the need for payroll, the need for quarantines of coronavirus or whatever the new thing coming around the corner is. And so, as Joey said, they store lots of cash, and cash is good, cash is king, but also it has its downfalls. And so I ran into this economist. I was at a conference down in Orlando, January 2009, right after the market crash. And being an investment advisor, someone who thought they knew everything you could know about the investment markets, being a certified financial planner, I come across this book called Becoming Your Own Banker. And inside of it is where he unveils this idea of infinite banking. And what he says is that, our money has to reside somewhere. And for most of us, we deposit our money into checking accounts at banks, and banks make money by doing what? By turning around and lending that money. And a lot of times they lend it back to us as business owners when we need lines of credit and so forth and so on. So he says, well, could we not perform that same function? And so this is kind of the start or the genesis for everything that we deal with in our own personal lives, and how we teach entrepreneurs of how to create financial freedom is, one, by getting control of our cash.
I love that. And you're right, Russ. What happens in Profit First, right, is we're doing our TAT transfers, our target allocation percentage transfers on the 10th and 25th, right? We're
Yeah.
allocating to our profit, we're allocating to our owner's pay, and we're building retained earnings, right? Because every quarter, if there's no debt, we're taking half to put into our vault account to build our retained earnings
Yeah.
while at the same time collecting our stock dividend. So to tell us, like, how do we start to make our money work for us then?
Well, so one of the things that, as Joey said, we always want to put this in context. And one of the things that we believe is that we need to create side income streams for ourselves. We need to have money coming in that's outside of our business. And for business owners, that's natural. We're used to doing that, but a lot of times we get involved in it and make the mistake of trying to be an operator of it as well. And then we spread ourselves thin, and our spouses get angry at us, like, why are you starting a new business? Have we overcome that? So for us, when we want to build wealth for ourselves, we need to build cash flows. We need to build ways to cover our expenses outside of our mainline business. And Joey and I used kind of refer to whatever you do for a living as your passion income. Because if you're not passionate about it, you need to get out of it, right? You're not going to be super successful nor add a lot of value to others if you truly don't like it. But our passion income should then be the catalyst to our passive income, to buying assets that can create income streams. And what we do is we expose a lot of those ideas on our own podcast, and we talk about what sort of assets we should be buying and how those assets can produce income streams. And then when we get that money coming to us, what do we do with it, right? Because the same concept of on the 10th and the 25th, where are we going to distribute it needs to apply to the same sort of business structure. But then if we don't need it, right, well, what are we going to do with it? Don't consume it. How can we put it into an account that we can control, but then go buy more assets that produce more income?
And we started to learn, this is back in 2009, 2010, that there are people that already have blazed that trail of knowing what's the best place to store your cash. And shocker, we looked at banks, right? From that book, Becoming Your Own Banker, you start looking at the FDIC.gov website. You can look up any bank that you work with or that you know of, and you can look at their balance sheet. And what was shocking to us is that one of the oldest, craziest places that people have been told never to put money in is exactly where banks are putting money. And that's in these super high cash value life insurance policies. Just to give you some context, I worked with Wells Fargo for 9 years. And little did I know, they had over $18 billion in their tier one capital in cash value life insurance. Now, I thought that was shocking, but it was even more shocking because I thought they had so much holding in real estate, and their cash value life insurance holdings are like dwarf their real estate holdings. So, okay, wait a minute. These guys know how to take someone else's money, turn around and lend it to others and make a profit. And they're one of the most profitable businesses known to man. And yet they're putting money in cash value life insurance. Why in the world would they do that? And better yet, it was more like, well, why wouldn't we just emulate that? And then when we ran across Profit First, we were like, wait a minute, this makes all the sense in the world. Let's bring these two things together. This is like peanut butter and jelly, for crying out loud, right? And who doesn't like that?
Yeah, definitely. So really just replicating the strategy of a bank, right? Looking at life insurance instead of putting it to the bank, become and using the middleman, really just being eliminating the middleman to take more of the share in terms of the profit or the spread between the rate that the return really and what you're spending it, or in this case you're not purchasing it for anything, right? You're using your own money. So that's a really great thing from that standpoint. So how does one go about really becoming their own bank? What is the process involved with that?
No, that's a great question. Well, one, just like anything, Suzanne, we need to understand what we're doing. And Joey and I, we look at what we do as teachers first. And what I love about Profit First and what you're doing here on this podcast is just educating. It's giving people an understanding of things that may seem complicated on the surface, but when you really dig down to it, you find it really easy. So we always refer people, one, to either reading, listening, or watching. And there's all different ways to do that. So we built a community. If it's okay, I'll share that community with your listeners. If you go to
Yes, please.
if you go to wealthwithoutwallstreet.com/profit talk, there's a free access to a 3,200 member community where we expose these ideas, and we do go through infinite banking, and we have a course in there that's free that you can like really break down how these things work. How would you get involved? We're not so presumptuous to believe that this is a fit for everyone. We do believe it's a foundational tool, but it's just a tool, right? Our goal is not to have lots of cash. Our goal is to have lots of cash flow and to have more of it flowing to us than away from us. And so in our process, so Suzanne, we have a 4-step process. Our first step is helping entrepreneurs get clarity, understanding what they want and why they want it, and are they tracking toward it. And for some of them, what they want is more time, but how many business owners and entrepreneurs actually track how much time are they spending doing exactly what they want And are they getting closer to it weekly? And most aren't. And I know that because I'm one. And until I really got challenged by that, I wasn't tracking my own personal time. And then secondly, it is getting control of the money. And I love the fact that your audience doesn't probably need as much advice in that, because they're following Profit First and they know where their dollars are going. And that's, for most people, they have no clue as to where their money's going. But unfortunately, they don't necessarily always have all the ideas, right? Because again, it's easy to listen to the advice that's maybe being given to your friends, family, and maybe even some of your employees, and assuming it fits you. So then they start using that same advice that's given to employees, and they start giving dollars away in areas that they shouldn't. So we have courses that are built to teach them about how to pay off debt, which debts are good to pay off. How do you use a framework to decide, so that way you don't have to have a financial guru or whoever to give you this information. You can have principles that you follow that allow you to do it. And then third, once they go through that process, then they've got cash. Then they can go, once they've gone through that infinite banking course, they can say, okay, well, maybe I need a coach to help me set up one of these life insurance policies. And again, this isn't life insurance for the sake of life insurance. This is cash. We're trying to emulate, as you said before, the banks. We're trying to put as much money as we can, and by the smallest death benefit possible. That requires an expert. So they reach out to someone who's a practitioner of this concept. Or we have coaches that get on the calls with people all over the country every day to do that. And then we move to the next step, which is helping them define where could they buy assets and so forth and so on.
Very neat. I have to ask this question. I'm just totally curious. How do you get somebody to like want to sell you their life insurance policy? I just have to ask. It's the craziest question in the world, but I imagine, I wouldn't want somebody to knock me off the face of the earth to get my my life insurance benefits. How does that work?
Okay, I must have explained that badly. So you're saying that you thought I mentioned that someone would buy an insurance policy and then sell it to a stranger?
Yeah. Just help
Okay.
me clarify that a little bit for me.
Yeah, no, that's not what happens at all. Now, I will say over the 15 years I've been in this industry, I have seen that happen. That does happen. That's called life settlements or viatical settlements, but that's not the business that we're in.
It does happen. Some of my relatives are Sicilian, and some of that happens, overseas, but not necessarily what we're talking about today.
No. So what someone would do. So again, if I'm sitting there and I'm creating, I've used Profit First, and I know exactly what my profit margins are, and I'm sending it to myself on the 10th and 25th. I got my tax hold accounts. I got this owner's pay, which again, out of my owner's pay, right? I should be saving out of it too. And I got to send it somewhere. Where's the first place? I could send it to a bank and deposit it in their accounts and allow them to turn around and invest it by lending it to someone and making the margin off of it. Or I can set up one of these high cash value life insurance policy where I buy it on myself, or I buy it on my business partner, or I buy it on my wife, or I buy it on my kids, which, by the way, this is going to sound crazy. I have 24 whole life policies. I own policies on multiple different business partners, on multiple different employees, kids, family members. I own the cash value. I'm the owner. I get to make the decisions. And that cash that resides in them is what I can then borrow against to invest and buy assets, or lend back to my business if I need to expand or do something new. Does that help?
Yeah, that makes it a whole lot clearer, because I was like, ooh.
It
And
does.
I'm sure a lot of our listeners and viewers are curious too. They were like, well, who's gonna sell you their life insurance policy?
It does happen. So I will say that over time, right? People start these policies, and we've done this. I don't know, thousands of policies people have set up. And as you might imagine, for one reason or another, something comes up, whether it's something in their life, or maybe another advisor comes in, tell them they've made a huge mistake, they need to get rid of it. And they call and they say, hey, I want to sell this back to the insurance company and surrender it. And we have had some clients that learned that they could sell it to someone else and get a higher price for it. And they have done that. I mean, it's, again, uncommon, but not a business that we're in to do, but it does happen.
That's very interesting. Yeah, we don't want to practice what Joey has seen.
That's right. I don't think anybody wants to go to jail to kill somebody off for a life insurance policy.
Yeah, you can call Guido if you want to buy some nice life insurance for somebody.
Right, definitely. No, that makes that. Thank you for clarifying. That makes a whole lot of sense. And I've seen that with like key man insurance and that type of thing, or buy sell agreements. And so that's really great. That's a great idea because eventually, you're right. All of us are going to eventually pass, right? And to be able to use those cash proceeds and have control of those cash proceeds as you go, right? Because you're acting as the banker to be able to invest in other things. That is a really, really great idea. And also, just how to learn more about that through your class that you have through wealthwithoutwallstreet.com/profit talk, to learn more the details of how that works is really good also. Um, Joey, Russ, how do we, if you could leave us with one piece of advice, and it can be personal and it can be business related, what would that piece of advice be?
I would just say something very simple. If you're listening to this podcast, you are an entrepreneur who is in a very small niche. That is somebody who's investing in yourself. You're taking action and you are doing things 99% differently than everybody else. So quit taking financial advice that is meant for the common person when you are totally uncommon. And what I mean by that is, I told Russ this actually um, just recently. I was like, to me, an entrepreneur understands what they should do with money, but they're constantly being bombarded with ideas that are opposite to that. So it causes confusion. And so what I would say is, number one, don't be afraid to go with your gut and your instinct. It's really good. Otherwise, you wouldn't be a successful entrepreneur. And number two, all you have to do to that is gain clarity so that you can make sure that you're making decisions properly along the way. And so I would invite you in to our process because you will learn through that clarity piece exactly what you've created and is it lining up with your goals, and if not, how to then maybe pivot and take the steps towards exactly what you want to have happen.
Yeah, I would say one tool that we use to help with that, if you will, Suzanne, is there's actually a formula to financial freedom. I don't know, I'm sure you know it, but maybe your listener doesn't. It's literally when you take your passive income, money that comes in from a business that you're not actively working in, and it's greater than your monthly expenses. And that's a really easy formula to follow. So right now, I would just call you to action is to write out how much money do I have coming in from things that I don't work in every single month, and write that on the left side of the page. And then because you understand your business finances, you pay yourself an owner's pay. So from that, you know what percentage of that you're spending and what percentage you're saving. You know exactly how much money you have. So you can write that on the right side of the page.
Your expenses, you mean?
Expenses, yeah.
Yeah.
So if you take the number on the left and you divide it by the number on the right, it's going to tell you how close are you in a percentage to reaching financial freedom. And what I would say is just write that number down, track it daily and weekly, and see, are you making progress? Because once you get to the point where you're at 100%, then you work because you want to, where you want to, with you want to, and it's not because you have to.
I love it. That makes sense. Definitely. I know for most of us entrepreneurs, our primary generator of income, right, is our businesses.
Yeah.
And in Profit First, it does generate a lot of excess cash just because of the nature of it, and in just terms of how we're out doing our allocations. So it's good to do that, and having your money just in a bank account. I mean, you can have thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars, and make maybe just $100 in interest a year, right? You
Right.
can you
Oh,
can actually make more money doing what my husband does with his straight coin collection of just walking down the street picking up pennies, right? You
Yeah.
make more than that from your bank. So definitely looking at alternative income sources is the way to go. So thank you so much, Russ and Joey, for joining us today and sharing your knowledge. And just so our listeners can hear one more time how they can work with you, contact you, and reach you, what would be the best way to do that?
best way is just join us there at the community at wealthwithoutwallstreet.com/profit talk. Within the app, you can actually download it to your phone after you've signed up. You can actually message Russ and I personally through there. It's almost like an individual text message. And we would love to connect with you there.
Awesome. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Yeah. Thank you for having us.
Our pleasure.